Everyone, welcome back to my channel. Just a quick little apology. I know the audio or my mic right now sounds like absolute dog, but I'm just traveling overseas at the moment, so I'm using my headphones and this is all I got. So please bear with me with this video, maybe a couple others, see how we go, but in a couple of weeks we'll be back to hopefully some better audio. But yeah, just want to jump in on everything that's happened around net zero with the Nats announcing that they're dumping net zero. So I wanted to get on and just sort of see what's going on and give a little take on it. So if this is your first time to my channel though, and you enjoy my content, head over there, subscribe, and yeah, you can sort of see where we're up to with learning everything about net zero. So let's jump into it.
For years after endorsing a policy of reaching net zero emissions, a newly unmuzzled National Party, now in opposition, has walked away.
We continue to believe that we need to reduce emissions, but we've got to do it in a better, fairer, cheaper way for all.
All right, so first off, he's talking about reducing emissions. If anyone sort of voted on that post that I did the other day, so something that I'm sort of trying to understand is where people sort of sit with net zero. If they're on the fence about, whether it's just achieving net zero by 2050 is something that they're in line with, or is it, we just want to reduce emissions to whatever number you want to say, like 50%, 70%, 80% by 2050, or maybe the 2050 target is too soon. Maybe it's like 2060, 2070. Trying to get an idea of like where people sit on that, or whether they just completely think that we should withdraw from the Paris Agreement. So I think that's kind of like I've always sort of said this about net zero, that one of the most important questions to start with is, where do you think we sit in terms of the Paris Agreement? Because if you don't believe in it, well then, what's the point of even talking about net zero at all? We're just more or less going to talk about electricity prices. But if you're, on board with the Paris Agreement, then probably your emission reductions or net zero is going to be, there's going to be more detail in there. So put in the comment section below where you sit. Go to the previous post, sort of see what other people are saying, and let's keep going.
Australians.
Like the proverbial tail wagging the dog, the junior coalition partner is pushing the majority party to follow suit, and it's splitting Liberals between those who want to dump net zero.
The only thing we're on track for is impoverishing our great country for no gain to the global climate.
The crippling costs, particularly in regional communities, mean that so many Australians are suffering. So these policies are not working. Australians can see it. The National Party have called this out.
And those seeking a compromise with the Nationals that would keep net zero alive, but perhaps push out the 2050 target date.
Paris Agreement says this century, China and India are looking at 2060, 2070. I mean, why wouldn't we be?
It's about time. So I don't mind Senator Bragg. He's probably one of the guys actually sort of talk sense in my eyes. But what you just said then, China 2060, India's 2070. I'm just so fucking thankful that finally that is entering the conversation, because I remember doing coverage on Tony Abbott a couple of months ago, and same with the other IPA people and Sky News and they're being China's not doing anything, India's not doing, why do we need to do anything, blah blah blah. But they had already announced that they were doing a 2060, 2070 target. So I'm glad that is finally coming out now, because they were spitting that for so long, and it's a part of their rhetoric. And do you know what annoys me the most is they can say all of that, and there's going to be no consequences for them even lying about that. Everyone would have forgotten the fact that China said 2060, and they're like, oh, China's not doing anything. And it's so if they can get away with that, what else do you think they're going to be getting away with? So I'm glad that that's actually entering the conversation now.
Flexible, as long as we stay inside the treaty.
The one thing that there is absolutely universal agreement on is that we have a responsibility to make sure that we play our role in emissions reduction.
Turning your back on net zero doesn't mean the problem of climate change goes away.
The ongoing civil war on climate policy once again threatening to split the coalition. Shadow frontbencher Dave Sharma saying if the two sides can't agree, they will need to consider the future of the coalition.
Do you think it's okay to break up again? Well, I think our country's always best served by a strong coalition government. We've seen that for the entirety that the Liberal Party's been in existence. But it's not at any cost.
The National Party's decision over the weekend to jettison its 2021 policy, brokered by then leader Barnaby Joyce, threatens to consume Susan Lee's leadership. There's growing speculation she will dump years of personal support for stronger climate action, if only to head off a challenge to her authority from the Liberal Party's Conservative wing. But it's a move, one senior Liberal warned 7:30, that could shatter her support among moderates who voted for her over Angus Taylor and lead to an exodus from the shadow cabinet. It's understood a decision will be made within weeks. In the meantime, she's leaving everyone guessing.
I'm looking forward to the work that will happen between now and the Liberal Party's position becoming known, and then us sitting down together as two mature parties.
Lee's difficulty, as she stumbles under the growing weight of another disastrous news poll, is that if she reneges on net zero, she'll be seen as following the junior partner's lead and embracing a Nationals plan that would see coal restored as a major source of future power in the grid, helped by government subsidies.
I think it's like the fact that the Nats have now come out and said that they're going against the net zero rollout or target, sorry. It puts a lot of pressure, I think, on Susan Ley now that, you know, she's now got to sort of, you know, I've always said anyway, like, you know, and then they kind of had to put forward their energy policy and what they think. But now, like, the actual climate is actually is a big decision as well. So just about energy mix anymore. So it's going to be, I think it puts a lot of pressure on her in a time when things are already shaky. And like, I'm definitely not someone, and I've had arguments for this with people in the comments before. Like, I'm not saying like all steam ahead with like Labor and Labor does everything right. I do think it's very, very important that we still have like a strong coalition and things like that, because otherwise there's no one there to actually challenge Labor. You kind of need that balance in order to progress or like be able to exercise democratic principles. Or like what it's there for. I think where we're at the moment is it's so heavily one-sided that, you know, it's kind of risking that kind of, yeah, one party favours kind of government, which I don't think is going to work out very well.
It's the best technology. Building a Healy coal-fired power station brings down its emissions. You do realise that, and that's before you even think about carbon capture storage, if you add that as an additionality.
The Nationals' decision to dump net zero relies on a report by the Page Research Centre.
Page Research, delivering a high-energy Australian. Okay, so is this the one that Matt Canavan's gone on about?
Think tank, chaired by former leader John Anderson.
So definitely want to have a look at that.
To dump net zero relies on a report by the Page Research Centre think tank, chaired by former leader.
Australia's net zero strategy is failing. It is making energy more expensive and is doing visible harm in nature. Homeland. This report argues that Australia should focus on delivering high energy Australian restorative. Oh God, here we go. Energy prices are soaring since Australia adopted net zero. 39% despite government's promises to that has like literally nothing to do with net zero, but okay. The default market offer set by AER shows average power bills are up. Industry is in retreat. Fiscal exposure is ballooning between the CIS, Rewiring Nation, hydrogen subsidies, the state. Okay, so I feel like this is I really hope this just isn't a report that's just dumping on net zero, like with no strong facts, and then it doesn't give any sort of alternative plan. Oh God, I hope it doesn't. Like
John Anderson
it doesn't even really look like a very thick report, which scares me.
Used coal is among the cheapest sources of power, citing research commissioned by Coal Australia, a Queensland-based lobby group.
If you're outsourcing
Coal Australia, you really think that they're not going to say that coal is the cheapest electricity?
your environment and climate policy to the coal industry, you'll fall in a very long way. The role of political parties is to govern in the national interest, not for vested interests. And today we're seeing a complete betrayal of the Australian community, with the coal industry prevailing over the interests of Australians.
They will pay a price from natural disasters and falling farm productivity. And that will be the price of a betrayal by those who represent farmers, those who are meant to represent farmers in regional Australia, but who just do not.
David Littleproud, how are you? The re-embrace of coal by David Littleproud follows years of strong support for renewables, often spruiking the benefits for his Western Queensland electorate.
This is an exciting time for the people of Maranoa in diversifying our economic base and ensuring that we actually also get a sensible energy policy that will put downward pressure on electricity costs for people right across this country while also meeting our international standards.
And then backing in the decision to sign up to net zero during the Morrison government.
Our party room respectfully
Barnaby's there too.
got to a position of securing but also growing regional jobs into the future, facing up to our international commitments but making sure we have the safeguards and the protections there.
With Littleproud's Nationals moving to bury all trace of a net zero target, sources have told 7:30 it's a matter of time before Lee's Liberals also declare those words are dead, a stance that will surely test the Liberal Party's ability to regain metropolitan seats.
I think this should be resolved this year. I think this is damaging our ability to hold the government to account.
No serious...
See,
This should be resolved this year. I think this is damaging our ability to hold the government to account.
that's exactly what I was talking about before. Like, except he just says shit better than me. But it's you need the coalition there in unison, or even just one of the, let's say hypothetically, the Nats end up developing like a huge base, or like let's say One Nation, right? Let's just go down that road. Either party, we just need someone who can hold the current government accountable and challenge them and push back. And without that, you're not really achieving like a proper democratic sort of government. Like, I mean, obviously you are, but like you kind of want that balance. Otherwise, if one person always has all the cards all the time, it's a bit scary.
This is damaging our ability to hold the government to account.
No serious political party that wants to be a party of government can ignore facts, can ignore science. And walking away from net zero is doing exactly that.
David Little.
Before we jump in, again, let me know what you think in the comments below, whether you're all about climate change or think it's a bit of a hoax.
Littleproud is the leader of the Nationals. David Littleproud, welcome to 7:30.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Will you remain in coalition with the Liberals if they keep their...
Okay. I don't know if you guys saw my last live stream, but we had a look at the Sarah Ferguson and Barnaby Joyce one, and Sky News and all of that basically kicked up a huge stink saying that she was way too harsh on Barnaby. They had that big sort of kerfuffle, if you want to call it that. Then when Matt Canavan went on with David Spears on Insiders, they came back saying like David Spears is way too hard on Matt Canavan. I can almost guarantee you that after this, people are going to be saying that Sarah Ferguson was probably too hard on Littleproud. I mean, I don't know how this all plays out, but I can just imagine. So let's sort of let's put a little bit of focus on what her questioning is like and whether we think that it is too harsh or not bipartisan and that sort of stuff. So let's sort of see how we go here.
Their commitment to net zero by 2050. Will you remain in coalition with the Liberals if they keep their commitment to net zero by 2050?
Okay, pretty fair question. If Liberals come out and say, no, we're going to keep our net zero target or a target that's going against it, will they keep going?
Well, look, we'll work through and won't preempt where the Liberal Party gets to. We'll give the time and the space to create the environment for them to get to a position. And then when they get to that position, as we've agreed between Susan Lee and myself, that we'll work constructively to try to get common ground. And that's the ethos that I'm going to take into wherever the Liberal Party gets to. We went through a long-standing process starting back in June to get to the position we have. And what I need to do is to show leadership in allowing them to get to their position and not preempt or make commentary along the way.
Okay, good response. I like that.
It won't help with respect to the position they may get.
Does it matter to you that your decision puts enormous pressure on Susan Lee's leadership of the Liberal Party?
Okay, that's fine. That's a good question. This is exactly what I was saying at the start. Them making this announcement now, before they've even had that conversation with Liberals, means that they're putting pressure on Liberals to now basically come out with what their stance is going to be. Whether his intentions weren't to put that pressure on, doesn't really matter. Like they're a team. One person's made a decision that puts pressure on the other team to other person to start, making announcements to.
Party.
No, we're both sovereign parties that have the right, as we articulated after.
Sorry, David. When you say it doesn't, when you say no, do you mean that's right? It doesn't matter that it puts enormous pressure on Susan Lee?
No, it doesn't put pressure on Susan Lee because she leads her own sovereign party as I lead mine, and we made that determination after the election.
Okay, so what I'm gathering here is he's backing down and saying, "Hey, no, we're both two separate sort of parties. We're allowed to make our own decisions." Blah, blah, blah. I mean, yeah, it's fine, but then don't go saying that you're a team or you're a coalition, because you are going to be putting pressure. You think like two teammates on the same team. If one person makes a decision, then the other person ends up having to make a decision based on what's left from that other teammate. Of course it does, whether you intentionally want it to or not, it still does.
We both have the right to lead our parties, to review the process and to review the policy itself, and to come to a conclusion. Then once that conclusion was met, that we would try to work together to get to a consensus. That's the process that we agreed to after the election, and that's the one that we've stuck to.
You may well, yes.
It'd be nice if you could just say, we both agreed that, we're going to come to our own decision. We're both our sovereign party, yada, yada, yada. Yes, I understand that, we might have done it first, and then that means that people, the public might be looking towards them. It wasn't our intention, but, we both agreed earlier on that this is sort of it's that recognition that, it still does put pressure, I think is what Sarah Ferguson's just trying to understand.
You may well have agreed to it, but it's not credible, is it, to claim that this puts no pressure on Susan Lee's leadership of the Liberal
Yeah, exactly.
Party, no pressure on the Liberal Party. That's simply not true, is it?
Well, I think that's your analysis, and I respect your analysis. The reality is I'm very relaxed to allow the Liberal Party to get to...
What I'm thinking there, and this is just to sort of trying to be good faith and given the benefit of the doubt, maybe he's just interpreting the word as pressure negatively. Let's just call it that, right?
To their position. We've been able to go through a process that got to a juncture where we could make a decision. Now, what I need to do is to continue not to commentate, but to allow them to be able to get to a position. And whatever that is, they'll do that with the fierce determination of the individuals within their room to get to that position, separate or in conjunction with the National Party.
Well, would you accept this much, that this decision of yours makes it harder for Liberals to win back particularly urban or suburban seats at the next election?
It's a fair question. So we're pretty good. Yeah, I think that's a very good question.
No, because if you look at the policy that we've articulated is that we still want to reduce emissions. It goes to the very heart. What we want to do is we believe that there's a cheaper, better, fairer way to reduce emissions, to address climate change, and to make sure that we can address affordability of energy for households and for business, and making sure that we don't just try to mitigate emissions, but also look to adaptation here in Australia to make sure that we have a healthy and stronger climate that can adapt, and making sure that we continue to do our fair share internationally, pegging ourselves to emissions around the world. So we're saying to people,
I think it's similar to what people put in the post I posted recently about where we think the Liberals are going to go. I know I think I had to autocorrect that because I wrote coalition, but it doesn't say Liberals. Understanding where we think the coalition, the Liberals are going to go, as a for their net zero, they're going to abandon it, or they're going to just reduce emissions to a certain extent, or they're going to extend the 2050 date. I think it kind of sounds like that's where Nats may land as well, with an actual plan.
People, whether you live in a capital city or whether you live in regional Australia, there is an alternative to net zero that Labor is putting forward. We can have a different alternative that we should explore and have a conversation. That's the political leadership.
Oh man, I'm sick of hearing this. Let's have a conversation. You guys can't say that you went out and did a third party report on net zero, and then just reading that blurb, which is basically just crapping on it the whole time, and then just be like, oh yeah, we just want to have the conversation. When you've already been sitting there just bullying the crap out of it. Okay, enough conversation. What's your actual plan then? there's still no plan. Like from the get-go, there's no plan, there's no modelling, there's no figures, there's no actual assessment been done. Where? Like you've had the conversation now for like 6 months.
That the National Party put forward yesterday.
Let me ask you this question. Why do you think the Liberals are tanking so badly in opinion polls right now?
Well, I think what we've got to understand is that we've got to be clear to the Australian people that we're focused on them and the challenges that they face. When there's Australians tonight that won't be able to put dinner on the table, in fact, St Vincent de Paul today released a report that showed nearly a third of Australians won't be able to put dinner on the table tonight.
A third of Australians won't be able to put dinner on their tables. No shot. No shot. A third of Australians can't put dinner on their table. Oh, man, I don't know about that.
We need to focus on the cause and what we can do to address that. And when we're not focused on that, and we're not focused on the solutions, then of course people are going to become disillusioned.
Does that mean, David Littleproud, that you think that the Liberal Party's adherence to net zero to this point is one of the main drivers of their unpopularity in the polls?
No, and I think it's important to understand we're a coalition, and we do this together. The polls reflect...
you haven't done it together, have you? Because you've gone out on your own and declared your policy in opposition to net zero by 2050 ahead of the Liberal Party, so that's not doing it together.
No, with respect, and we do this together. The polls reflect...
you haven't done it together, have you?
On the solutions, then of course people are going to become disillusioned.
Does that mean, David Littleproud, that you think that the Liberal Party's adherence to net zero to this point is one of the main drivers of their unpopularity in the polls?
No, and I think it's important to understand we're a coalition, and we do this together. The polls reflect...
you haven't done it together, have you? Because you've gone out on your own and declared your policy in opposition to net zero by 2050.
Okay. I don't think they've actually got a policy or a plan together yet for the alternative to net zero. So I think she's kind of forward stepping a little bit there, because I can kind of see where he's coming from, where they've just declared that they've got an alternative, that they want an alternative to Labor's net zero. They don't know what that looks like yet. They don't know what the mix is going to be. They don't know what the target's going to be. They don't know what the emission reduction target's going to be either. And they're waiting for the Liberals to come out and say what they want to do, and then they'll get together as a coalition and they'll basically come out and maybe they'll just say, all right, 2060, we're still going to use coal. We're going to wait for China to wind down, and then we're going to replace coal with like a nuclear base load, and we're still going to keep like 40-50% of the grid as renewables, something like that, right? Let's just say that's hypothetically what we can do. Then I would say that they have a proper plan and policy. And then that plan and policy, I think, would then start to reflect in the polls. I don't think just coming out with these conversation, headlines like the Nats dumping net zero is really going to affect the polls as much. I think it's once the coalition gets together and they kind of work towards an actual plan and start writing policy, I think that's when it will start influencing the polls. So I kind of think she's like a couple of steps ahead here, but I still don't think it's like very aggressive questioning. I think she's actually being quite soft in this interview than others, to be honest.
Ahead of the Liberal Party, so that's not doing it together.
No, with respect, the agreed principle after the election was that both parties would individually review their policy on net zero and come back after they've completed that and respect one another and wait for whoever was unable to get to the position first, and then work constructively. And that's the process that we'll adhere to. And when the Liberal Party gets to their position, we've decided around a course of action post that to ensure that we constructively work towards the opportunity to get to consensus. And I think that's the structure and process that's been put in place since the election. That's what I want to continue to do, and make sure that we say to Australians, we're serious about reducing emissions. But there's not just one way to do it. There is...
Yeah, so everything you're saying there, I think he's being quite, he's showing good character here, I believe.
A cheaper, fairer, better way to do it.
How many of your colleagues wanted to go further than abandoning net zero and exit the Paris Agreement altogether?
Fair question. Can't complain about that. And this is sort of what I was also saying, like, at the very start, and what I was like, you need to have that as like an opening question if you're going to have any sort of conversation about net zero. You need to know where people stand on the Paris Agreement, whether they're for it or they're against it.
Well, we didn't even get to a decision on Paris because what that is a commitment to continue to reduce emissions. It's a framework and saying that we seriously believe in reducing emissions.
How can you say that? You should. It's the framework of talking about if we're going to reduce emissions, and you haven't even had that conversation yet. But you've gone and invested all this money in a report to go against net zero. That's so hypocritical. Like what?
Net zero by 2050 is effectively the mechanics to get there. And what we're saying is there's different mechanics that can be looked at here in Australia that isn't going to put the enormous burden on Australian families and on industries. And you want to ask the people of Tomago, the families of Tomago tonight, about why they won't have job security.
Let me ask you, just before I run out of time, because obviously the Tomago question is a complicated one, but just answer this if you would. How will slowing down the renewables rollout, pushing more very expensive coal and gas into the system, bring down energy prices?
Okay, I think that's a loaded question. All right, so here, she's been good all up until now. I think that is a very, very loaded question, right? I think when you start saying, like, trying to be like a bipartisan reporter or interviewer sort of thing, if you load things like, like coal, like, the coal being a very expensive form of electricity, unless you're citing, like, according to CSIRO Gen Cross report that says that, coal is the most expensive form of gas, like, how do you think that's going to yada, yada, yada? That's how you should frame it instead of saying it as if it is a fact, because that's just what the Gen Cross report currently says.
How will slowing down the renewables rollout, pushing more very expensive coal and gas into the system, bring down energy prices?
Well, what we're saying is that you should put all the solutions on the table.
So, like, his sort of response should be like, well, Sarah, that's according to the Gen Cross report, which we think is incorrect, and we think it's incorrect because based on these assumptions that they made, yada, yada, yada. We see, like, from our reporting, from blah, 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 we see coal at this price and therefore making it a cheaper form of coal, and then this is how we're going to roll that out. And this is why it's more cheaper than renewables. Like, that's the sort of conversation I'm waiting for them to have when they go against all this. So, without that, all this is just going to be, dog's breakfast of words.
Including nuclear in the short term, whatever the transition may be.
The most expensive form of energy in the world.
Okay, so she's going to go on about saying nuclear is... So she's quoting, like, the Gen Cross report there, which is fine, but just reference it. Like, just say, well, according to the same Gen Cross report that the government is following to roll out net zero, nuclear is the most expensive, well, SMRs, blah, blah, blah.
At the moment. So how does coal, gas and nuclear, does coal, gas and nuclear make energy prices in Australia?
Because it's the most expensive in Australia, according to the Gen Cross report. But in other countries, I think nuclear is coming down in terms of prices, and I think it's projected to be cheaper as well, like in America and stuff, with their reports with the whole new Trump nuclear sort of thing. So, yeah, I think just getting those sort of phrasing those things, I think, is very, very important in this topic.
Australia come down when they are more expensive than renewables.
No, Sarah, that's not necessarily true, and I think it's important we work through the facts on this. But what we also need to do is, whatever the transition is that we need...
So work with the facts, right? So that's what he's sort of saying. So where are you getting your facts from? That's where you start the conversation. I only know where Sarah's getting her facts from is because I've, gone to town on the CSIRO Gen Cross report with the AEMO.
No, Sarah, that's not necessarily true, and I think it's important we work through the facts on this. But what we also need to do is, whatever the transition is that we need, and it's obvious that we're going to have to sweat out coal-fired assets longer. Even the Queensland government has acknowledged that. So why wouldn't we take a technology-agnostic approach to it, extend the capacity investment scheme to be able to support and bring equilibrium to energy generation and to try and increase whatever generation we've got, and actually get...
Okay, so he wants to extend the CS... capacity investment scheme to help extend coal power plants. Okay.
Our energy operator to prioritise the most affordable source of energy, not
the AEMO works in conjunction with CSIRO and their Gen Cost report. How do you think that the Gen Cost CSIRO got their data to the operator and regulator and stuff? So, okay, cool. And the NEM, and their output was that renewables was the cheapest form of energy. So already the AEMO are working with like the most cheapest form of electricity. So he needs. You just did a report, right? The NAS just did a report that should be saying that the CSIRO Gen Cost report was incorrect. That's what it should be saying. And he should be referencing that. So he shouldn't be saying working with the AEMO, because the AEMO currently already believes that it has everything right.
The one that prioritises our 2030 target, interim target. Those are simple measures that we can implement today that would put downward pressure on energy bills for Australians today. So those are the practical solutions we brought forward, and saying that you can't run an economy in an all renewables approach. There's no.
If he says that they could, so what he's sort of saying there, very, very quickly. So he's spitting off all these facts that, well, they're quote unquote facts. But there's a lot of detail in what he's saying, and if you say it all, I find he's just doing this real quickly, and it's very hard to sort of analyze, because if you list off like 5 different facts, then you can't actually like go through and fact check them. Like he is talking about reintroducing, well, keeping coal, and then that should drive down power prices immediately. I think he said like
we can implement today that would put downward pressure on energy.
Okay, so you can implement today so it puts downward pressure on electricity prices. Okay, how do you know that, and what does that look like? Because if you're just going to go like, let's just say you're hypothetically going to stop all renewables, and then we're just going to focus on coal and gas. Okay, and then that's going to put downward pressures on the market thingo, because we've done this analysis and blah blah blah. This is the output we get. Okay, cool. Okay, what about the costs associated with cancelling all that net zero? What happens to all the investment that we've got? About all the jobs that are related to it? All those sort of things. Like, what does that look like? You kind of got to. He's only talking like 10-20% of it. But he's treating it as if they've got it all figured out, when it just doesn't sound like they do yet.
For Australians today. So those are the practical solutions we brought forward.
That's just a talking point. Cheaper electricity for everyday Australians. We don't know how we're going to get there, but we know we got it though. It's just going to fall short.
And saying that you can't run an economy in an all renewables approach. There's no country that has done it. In fact, Portugal and Spain had a go. They got to 77%. They lost their grid. You look at Tomago today. They can't do.
Well, I don't think they're looking at all renewables. It's renewables plus firming, which is going to be like gas and batteries and whatnot.
Do it on renewable energy, you need baseload power. Those are the physics that we can't run away from, and what we need to do is have sensible solutions that calmly work through this.
All right, well, David Littleproud, there's a whole series of statements there that really should require fact checks on the run.
Jesus. Oh, it's happened a few times, this video. Yeah, exactly. Like, he just went on and on, like, saying all these things. It's like, whoa.
I can't do all of them, so next time maybe we'll get into some of that detail. In the meantime, thank you very much indeed for joining us on The Politics today.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so, well, first and foremost, Sarah wasn't too bad. I think she was fine. I think she kind of went off the rails there at the end. A bit of putting in a few lines there that kind of, I just feel like you can frame those questions a lot better so it doesn't sound, like she's not just making shit up, because, those are from the Gen Cost report, so should just say that. But anyways, yeah. Well, look, at the end of the day, I think David Littleproud's right in terms of like what he was saying, like there, where they're allowed to have their sort of position. That's fair enough. They are the part of their own party. The Liberals need to come to the table now. I think he should just recognise that it does sort of put a little bit of pressure on it, but it doesn't really matter. Not that big of a deal, I don't think. But ultimately, the coalition is going to have to come together and actually work out a plan. And then until they come out and say, this is our plan, which is like, we're not talking about it anymore. It's not a conversation anymore. It's an actual plan. and we're going to start running policy, I think that's when you'll start to see a swing in voters. I think at the moment there's just so many voters that are like, they don't know where to go. I've mentioned this before. It would have sucked if you were a hardcore conservative or lib before, and now like you just don't really have anywhere, like any party to rely on. I think that would suck. Yeah, and I think they're like kind of in limbo between that and Liberals and Liberal Party and One Nation. Yeah, I think they've really got to. Hopefully, their net zero policy and plan sort of brings more together, and we can all huddle up in a corner and sing Kumbaya again sometime soon. Anyways, let me know what you think of that. And get back to trying to enjoy my holiday. Let me know what you think of net zero and everything that's sort of gone on with the Nats and the Libs in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit to my channel and subscribe and like these videos and join the polls. And I'll see you in the next one.